Hey guys, we're Ali and Gary with Roll With Us DMs, professional game masters with over 17 years of experience that also love to go on some side quests with our friends, which you can see here on our channel.
Thank you for checking out our videos. If you haven't already, you should quest down to the subscription button and strike the notification bell so you never miss our content.
Our links are in the description below.
Consider becoming a channel member to access epic perks, including playing in one of our games. Now, on with the video. Hi there, and welcome to the short rest for today. I'm going to be looking at the similarities between DC20 and D&D 5e, and then we'll also look at the similarities between DC20 and Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so we can draw a conclusion as to where the system gathers the most of its inspiration from. So, pretty simple video today, nothing flashy. We're just going to list out some of the similarities and differences. If there is any audience participation while I'm streaming this to Twitch, I will take that and we could talk about certain specific topics. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep working on this lists of similarities. So one of the biggest similarities I think between DC20 and D&D 5th edition is going to be the use of advantage and disadvantage. Those are definitely two very key features in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and they are used almost everywhere in DC20, whether it's being able to grant yourself advantage with an action, or having stacking disadvantage for doing the same action over and over again. The concept of rolling multiple 20-sided dice and taking the highest if you have advantage or the lowest if you have disadvantage is a key aspect of the way that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition functions, and DC20 has taken that aspect of the system and expanded it, as I stated, with the ability to have multiple instances of both advantage and disadvantage. One interesting thing while I'm talking about advantage and disadvantage is that Dungeon Coach was asked in one of his live streams recently what would happen if you had heavy armor, which gave you disadvantage on stealth, and a very heavy shield, which I believe there is one option that also imposes disadvantage. Would you have double disadvantage on your stealth checks? And he said yes. Those two instances of disadvantage would stack. And I think the one thing that this does that's elegant in comparison to 5th edition is that no longer is it like, I have disadvantage already, so I'll take all the things that give me disadvantage because it doesn't matter. Once I have that disadvantage, multiple instances won't matter. I'm already disadvantaged. But in DC20, you have to really think about that. Do I want another instance of disadvantage on top of the disadvantage that I already have? So I think this is an interesting game mechanic, and one that I haven't really seen a system handle in such a way that it actually makes a compelling argument as to what decision you decide to make. So, advantage and disadvantage. Another thing that comes to mind for 5th edition and DC20 is weapon ranges. So what I mean by weapon ranges is in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, your weapon has a normal range and it has a long range. And the ranges are in parentheses. And they have a slash, diagonal slash between the normal range, which is first, and then the long range. So if you attack within that normal range, it's a normal attack roll. No disadvantage, no advantage. It's just your roll a d20, add your modifier, that's your attack roll. If it's within that second range increment, then it's long range, which is at disadvantage. So what this does for DC20, again building on that advantage and disadvantage, is that if you are attacking at that second range increment into that, like, let me try to give you an example. And I can actually use the legitimate 5th edition player's handbook because the range increments work very similarly. The only difference is that DC20 uses spaces and not feet. So 5 feet in 5th edition is equal to 1 space in DC20. But otherwise, the way that it works is very similar. So, for example, a short bow has a range of 80 feet and then 320 feet. So, let me see if I can get that to come up on here. I'm not really sure. Short bow. See how it's in parentheses range 80/320. That is how the range increments are done in DC20 again, except that it would be in spaces, so that like 80, that would be I believe it would be 14 squares for the normal. Although a short bow in DC20, I believe, is less than that. I think it's only 12 spaces, actually. So, in DC20, if you wanted to shoot into that long range, you could. It would be at disadvantage, but you could always spend an extra action to remove the disadvantage by granting yourself advantage. That instance of advantage would remove the instance of disadvantage, and you could make that shot at a normal roll 1d20 at your modifier instead of having disadvantage, where you would be rolling 2d20 taking the lowest. Now, the other thing that's interesting again with just how DC20 works is that you have stacking disadvantage. So just by shooting into the long range, you have disadvantage. But if you were to make a second shot, that second shot would incur 1 instance of disadvantage for it being your second attack roll of the turn, and it would incur an instance of disadvantage from just being at long range. So, like, even if you make that first attack at disadvantage, your second attack is going to be at double disadvantage, and you could spend an action and you would have advantage, but unlike in 5th edition, where advantage and disadvantage completely wash each other out, you would have 2 instances of disadvantage, 1 instance of advantage, and essentially you would still have 1 instance of disadvantage. And it would just continue like that. But this is what I was saying about how multiple instances of disadvantage do stack, and it's not just from multiple attacks, but also from things like long range could give you disadvantage, and each instance of that disadvantage that you wanted to remove would take extra actions to grant yourself enough advantage to remove that penalty. Which I think is also interesting, because in 5th edition, if you, again, have like 4 instances of disadvantage, let's say you're blindfolded so you can't see your target, and you're restrained, and you're shooting into the long range, that's 3 instances of disadvantage. If you can somehow gain 1 instance of advantage, which could be from an ally giving you the help action, you've just removed all 3 of those instances of disadvantage, and you're making a normal attack roll. And that is silly. So I think the way that DC20 handles it is rather elegant. Let's just put this back on the shelf. And so we've got weapon ranges. I'm going to pop over to Pathfinder 2nd Edition for a minute. I can tell you unequivocally that 5th Edition Dungeons & Dragons has inspired DC20 more than Pathfinder 2nd Edition. However, the things that Pathfinder 2nd Edition has inspired DC20 to do is also quite good. And honestly, it may be some of my favorite aspects of the system in general. Like, the first one that I'm going to mention is the 4-point action economy. What is it about the 4-point action economy? Well, Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a 3-point action economy. It's very flexible in the sense that you could attack, attack, attack. You could move, attack, move. You could move, move, attack. You can move, move, move. You have those 3 actions, spend them on what you want. But you also have that hanging reaction. And so I think that where DC20 has taken this, the 3-point action economy of Pathfinder, and improved upon it is by taking that hanging reaction, making it an extra action, and saying, you have 4 actions, do whatever you want. But the area where DC20 really shines even beyond what I've already explained is the fact that, reactions, you aren't limited to just the one. And you can spend all 4 of your actions off turn, which is really pioneering, I think. I have not seen a system so freely allow you to use reactions and do things when it's not your turn. But the level of interaction that gives, the amount of engagement that causes the players to have when it's not their turn, because they can always be looking for things to do when it's not their turn, is quite impressive. And for that, I have to say that the 4-point action economy is probably my favorite thing with DC20 when you factor in all of the aspects of it. And I mean, it even goes back into how advantage and disadvantage work, how they stack in DC20, how you can grant yourself advantage with an action. Your action points that you have are just so flexible. There's not a lot of things that are like, this is 2 actions. It's more like you have these action points and you can kind of build your own thing. So whereas like in Pathfinder you might have an ability called let's say sudden charge is 2 actions, and you get to move, and attack. So 2 actions to get 3 actions worth of economy, 2 movements, and an attack is really good in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. What you're getting here in DC20, though, is the ability to kind of customize each thing that you're trying to do however it is that you would like to customize it. You're not like, I have this ability sudden charge that takes 2 actions and it does this, it does these 3 things. Or another thing that I can think of is like Flurry of Blows, where it's 1 action, you get to make 2 attacks. That's great for action economy, but it's not the same as having, like, it's almost like a smorgasbord in DC20, because you can spend an action on power attack and then just add an extra point of damage to your attack. You could spend an action to give yourself advantage and then make that attack, and that's 3 actions, but you've kind of built like this specialized attack that you want to do. If you wanted to add another thing to that, you could add, like, say, you were using a sword, you could add the maneuver for the sword to give yourself a d8 health die on that attack. So it's like almost anything that you want to do in DC20 with the 4-point action economy, you can kind of customize it just depending on how many actions that you want to spend on it. So rather than having like a set, these are the things that you can do, you kind of get to build every time you do a thing however you want it to be, which is, I think, kind of cool and freeing. So the 4-point action economy, I think for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we have the Ancestry system. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition uses an ancestry system, where you get to kind of customize your ancestry, your heritage, however you would like by selecting specific options. For example, go to the official book just for some examples. Yeah, let's go with one of my favorites, a goblin. So if you were to pick a goblin, you would get certain things automatically for being a goblin, like a certain amount of ancestry hit points. Your size is determined by that, your speed, what kind of ability boosts you get, if you get any ability flaws. So this is going to help build out your stats for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Languages, traits, and any other special abilities. In this case, the goblin has dark vision and therefore can see in the dark. But then you also pick a heritage, and depending on your heritage, for example, there's Charhide goblins that gain fire resistance, Iron Gut goblins that can eat some pretty nasty things, Razor-Tooth goblins that get a bite attack because their teeth are sharp, Snow goblins that get a cold resistance, and then Unbreakable goblins that are exceptionally thick-skulled, as the book says, and therefore gain extra hit points from their ancestry, and they take less damage when they fall. On top of picking a heritage, you also get an ancestry feat at first level. So you're really making like 3 choices with your ancestry in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You're picking an ancestry, you're picking a heritage, and then you're picking a feat. And between those 3 choices, you're getting a lot of customization. In a similar vein, DC20 allows for customizing your ancestry, because you kind of get roughly 3 choices. Every ancestry is going to come with a 0-point ability. You have 5 points to spend on your ancestry at level 1. You do have some traits that are negative, so they will essentially give you extra points so that you could spend more as long as you're willing to take some negatives. But, for example, I have a player in a game tomorrow whose character, she really liked one of the elf traits, but she also really liked some of the human traits. So while DC20 doesn't have half elf as a playable ancestry, you can pick any 2 ancestries, and those are your parents that you have your heritage through, your ancestry through, and then you would buy your 5 points worth of traits from those 2. So she was able to take the one elf trait that she wanted, and then the 2 human traits that she wanted, and then she has that level 0 point flavor type thing from the human. So very cool in that regard, that you can kind of customize your ancestry to be what you want it to be. The process is a little bit different, and it doesn't like impact your stats and things the way that it does in second edition Pathfinder, except in the case of, like, say, the human, stock human, if you don't change it at all, does have one of their 2-point abilities is that you get to add +1 to one of your ability scores. So that's good. That's cool. Definitely helps balance out wherever you're weak, or add a little bit more to like a secondary strength. It has definitely helped me to build some interesting characters. And then I know that some of the other ancestries also do provide boosts, but only to specific stats where the human can pick any. So we have the 4-point action economy, the ancestry system. You know what I think? We're going to go back to D&D for a second here. Weapon traits. So I would say a couple of things on weapon traits. It kind of pulls from both in some regard, but I think it pulls more heavily from D&D 5th edition. And the reason is that in D&D 5th edition, the weapon traits don't really mean as much as they do in Pathfinder 2nd edition. The traits, you have like trip and shove, I believe. The traits are definitely, like, the weapons in Pathfinder 2nd edition are way more impactful than the weapon choices in D&D 5th edition. I feel like DC20 has kind of pulled from both, in the sense that a lot of the weapon traits from 5th edition, I'm going to grab that book because I'm kind of drawing a blank for a minute here. So, like, versatile in 5th edition means that you can swing it one-handed or two-handed. So if it's a longsword, which is versatile, you can swing that longsword with one hand for less damage, or two hands for more damage. In 5th edition, the example would be with that longsword, a D8 slashing with one hand, a D10 slashing with two hands. So when you see versatile in DC20, it means the same thing. It means that you can swing it one-handed or two-handed. So, for example, the longsword in DC20 is 2 damage one-handed, 3 damage two-handed, and it's also it's shown in the book the same way. So again, looking at the 5th edition book, let me see if I can find the longsword here, and I'll show you how it is. I'm not sure if you could see that. Trying to get it as good as I can. But it puts versatile and then in parentheses 1d10. And it would be the same thing for DC20, except the versatile would be 3. Usually, depending on the weapon. But it's going to hit for more damage if it's swung with 2 hands. And things like, two-handed means the same thing in both systems. Let me just continue on versatile for a second, then, just to show the difference in Pathfinder 2nd edition and why I think that the weapon traits are more similar to D&D 5th edition rather than Pathfinder 2nd edition. And it's versatile is a weapon trait in Pathfinder, except it means that you can deal a different damage type. So you can say with a sword, sometimes you can deal slashing or piercing damage if it's versatile, just as an example. When you can deal multiple damage types in 5th edition or in DC20, I guess it's really in 5th edition anyway. It's up to the DM's interpretation because it doesn't really give you that that option. I don't see it in here anyway. But, you know, if somebody wanted to say a short sword is piercing, but if they wanted to deal slashing damage with a short sword, I mean, that's fine. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that. So in Pathfinder, versatile means the damage type is versatile. In D&D and DC20, versatile means that you can swing the weapon one-handed or two-handed. So it's how you attack with it, one-handed, two-handed, versus how you attack with it. What kind of damage do you want to deal? Is the difference between Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the other two. But I believe that other traits like heavy, light, finesse. I don't think finesse actually has a place in DC20. I'm not 100% on that. Reason being that you're attacking with your prime modifier. That is another one of my favorite things, and I'm not sure exactly where that ranks. I think what I'm going to try to do for Monday's refocus is to make it a DC20 top 5, my top 5 favorite things. For anybody that's not aware, the Kickstarter for DC20 goes live Tuesday, June 4th at 11 a.m. Central. And there's a launch party on the Dungeon Coaches channel 10 a.m. Central. So for me, that's 11 for the launch party, and then 12 p.m. noon for the Kickstarter, but that's because I'm in Eastern time. Anyway, I think the weapon traits are definitely more similar to 5th edition. What other kinds of similarities? This is maybe more ambiguous, but I think that the class features are more similar to the 5th edition versions in that you have things like Step of the Wind, which is a 5th edition ability for the monk, let's say. You have Patient Defense, which is a 5th edition monk ability. You have Action Surge, which is a 5th edition fighter ability. And these are all represented in a DC20 variant, which then works within the DC20 system of the 4-point action economy, advantage, disadvantage, stacking of those. But I think the way that DC20 handles that is more closely related to D&D 5e. But I just thought of a good one here, which is multi-classing. So this is going to be for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So multi-classing between the systems, in D&D 5th Edition, if you want to multi-class, you just take a level in another class. And you are, like whatever class you pick at level 1, you are that class. But then if you multi-class, like then you're kind of like two classes. So like if you were to start off as a fighter and then at level 3, instead of taking that third level of fighter, you decided to take a level of sorcerer, you would then be, 2 levels fighter, 1 level sorcerer. The way that DC20 handles multi-classing is similar to Pathfinder 2nd Edition in that you don't get an entire level in another class. Instead, you spend a resource. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's a class feat, unless you're playing with the free archetype rules and the variant rules, and then you're still spending essentially a free class feat that you get every time you get a class feat, which is every even level, 2, 4, 6, so on. You're just getting one for free that you can spend on multiclassing. It can only be spent for multiclassing. But if you're playing without that, if you're playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules as written, you're spending your class feat, your resource that is your class feat, that you would normally spend on gaining new class abilities on multiclass. So to grab a little bit of another class. DC20 does it similarly. The resource that you're spending is a talent point. So instead of grabbing another, like a special talent ability from your class or a general talent, you're going to use a multiclass. You're going to spend it on multiclass, and then you're going to go and grab a feature from another class. This actually, I think, is the premier way to handle multiclassing. I used to think that Pathfinder 2nd Edition had it done elegantly, but I have to say that this DC20 version seems just a notch above, in the sense that in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you're tied to this feat tree of, first I have to take the dedication, which might not give me what I want from this class. It's going to be very limiting whatever you do get. It's not going to be probably the very thing that you want. And then you have to take more feats every opportunity that you get, every even level, in order to unlock the things that you're trying to do. Whether that's spellcasting from one of the spellcasting classes, or to gain feats from that other class. It's cool that you can do it. It's cool the way that it works. The biggest strength to both Pathfinder 2nd Edition and DC20 in this regard is that you are the class that you start with, and you level through that class, and you're always that class, and you're always leveling in that class, so your progression is never held back. You're never losing, like, your spellcasting ability. You're always getting better at that class that you are, but you're able to add a little bit of other classes. But instead of being locked into a feat tree, DC20 is pretty much saying, go pick any class feature that you want from any class, as long as it's level appropriate, based on the level of the talent that you're spending, and grab it. Whatever it is. You want the Barbarian's Rage? Take it. You want the Bard's Font of Inspiration? You could take that. You can just kind of grab all the little bits that you want. And there are advantages to sticking with one thing, with one class, or at least spending a little bit of time in that class. You unlock for free a flavor feature of the class that you're multi-classing, that you're pulling talents from. You unlock that for free. It's the only way to unlock it. You can't unlock that flavor feature from um, spending talent on it directly. And then also the subclass. In order to take a subclass, I believe you have to have already taken something in that class. You have to have already spent a talent in that class to grab a feature, and then you could grab one of its subclass features. Again, to note, if I understand this correctly, because there aren't any official subclasses yet, is you don't grab the whole subclass. You grab a feature of that subclass. So it's very balanced, not overpowered, and just super customizable. And while it does have a little bit of a feel of a feature, in the sense that like you have to take something from this class in order to take something from the subclass in order to take something higher level out of the subclass, it is way less restrictive because you're not told like you have to pick this thing and then this thing and then this thing. You have access to the entire features. So like, you know, if you wanted I keep going to barbarian, but let's say you wanted a barbarian subclass feature, you could take any of the barbarian's features first. You could take the rage, you could take reckless attack, you could take primal savagery, which gives you that unarmored defense. So you're not like told, okay, first you have to take this barbarian dedication, and that's going to give you these set things, and then you can take the the subclass feature next time. No. You're given complete freedom. Pick what you want, and if you don't want that subclass feature right away, you could grab another lower level feature from the barbarian. Maybe you want their primal cry from level 2, where you can like roar and shout as you run into battle, and inspire your allies to fight harder. So, the 4-point action economy, the ancestry system, we've got multi-classing. Sorry. Let's see. There was a video, I should note. If you're interested in more info on multi-classing, I did a video. It was like, I think 2 weeks ago. So if you go back through my videos, it was a short rest, I believe. Because the multi-classing is like, you could easily do an entire video just on the multi-classing. Yes. Multiple attack penalty. I'm going to put multiple check penalty as it's known in DC20. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition has the multiple attack penalty, which is you normally would get like a -5 to your first attack and then a -10 to your second unless you're using an agile weapon, and then it's -4 and -8 respectively. Rather than dealing with like, you know, a bunch of different penalties and different numbers, you know, like, is it -5? Is it -4? Is it -10? Is it -8? DC20 just uses stacking disadvantage, so I think it's cleaner, it's faster. You're not trying to figure out what is my penalty, like what is the numerical value, and then having to apply that to each of them. And then I think on top of that, the fact that DC20 gives you the ability to cancel out that disadvantage if you're willing to spend the action economy on it is also very cool. Again, I did a whole video on that, so I don't need to go too much into that one. And it looks like, you know, Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a lot more in common with DC20 than I had initially stated. And there was another one along these lines. Let's see, multiple check penalty, multi-classing ancestry, 4-point action economy. Check penalty. Well, just to keep like some kind of conversation going, I can say that like some of my favorite things. Again, look for this video Monday with DC20 is the spell points, mana points instead of spell slots is very elegant, much better than having spell slots. It gives more flexibility. The spell casting in DC20 is very flexible, where every time you cast a spell, you kind of craft the spell that you want. So that's very cool, but there's not really a comparison to that in either of the systems. And the Prime modifier, just the fact that you are a good adventurer regardless. So that's just kind of a look to the to Monday's video. I would definitely say that, you know, I've mentioned the 4-point action economy being one of them. But we'll see what makes the cut on Monday's refocus. So 5e. I mean, one of the things, I'm actually going to make it a thing, and this is probably the biggest thing, is the rules. In general, I think that if you're familiar with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, whether that be as a DM or as a player, you can very easily step into the shoes of a DC20 DM or player, because if you know how to play 5th edition, you can play DC20. The 4-point action economy is very easy to pick up. It's intuitive. It's engaging. And if you're a DM, if you know how to make rulings in D&D 5th edition, you would be making very similar rulings in DC20. You know, if you think that something would impose disadvantage in D&D 5th edition, odds are it probably imposes disadvantage in DC20. And you just need to know that advantage disadvantage stacks, so you would just see how that balances out. If there's some instances of advantage and some instances of disadvantage, they're going to cancel each other out to some degree, and you may end up with a couple instances of either advantage or disadvantage depending on the case. But things like, you know, you can look at weapon ranges, you can look at weapon traits, you can look at even things like class features. Like, I think when it comes to actually playing the game, it plays like 5th edition. With the exception of the 4-point action economy, DC20 plays like 5th edition. But that 4-point action economy then from Pathfinder 2nd edition is kind of what fuels the entirety of like combat and gameplay that, well, that is not exploration or social. Taking things like the ancestry system, the multi-classing, those are more about like how you customize your character, and the multiple check penalty is kind of baked into the 4-point action economy, because it's how Pathfinder 2nd edition handles their 3-point action economy, where you get those penalties for trying to do the same thing multiple times in a turn. Yeah. So again, I think there was some more things that I wanted to throw on these lists. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things for D&D 5e, 4 things for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So even though it's close, I still would tend to think that the game in general, how it plays, definitely draws more from D&D 5e at the core. And a topic for another video sometime. It'll probably be a refocus. If not, I feel like I should do a top 5 kind of video, like reasons that I like DC20 in support of the Kickstarter. But I would like to do a video talking more about the multiclassing. And I know that I already did a video on multiclassing, but I would like to propose how I would implement DC20's multiclassing into 5th edition, because I think it could work very elegantly in the sense that, let's say you were playing, I might just go off script on this a little bit here, right? So a little bonus here at the end. Let's say you were a ranger. No, rangers. Let's say you were a paladin. You would only level up as a paladin. You would not use the 5th edition multiclassing at all, and you are a paladin. But let's say that every even level, 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th, you got a talent, just like in DC20, and you could spend that talent on grabbing a feature from another class. So, if you wanted to grab something from the monk, it would have to be a first level feature, but you could grab the monk's unarmored defense or the monk's martial arts. And then with your 4th level talent, you could grab a 1st or 2nd level feature from a class. So if you wanted, then with your 4th level talent, you could grab, let's say, the monk's key, and so it would take a little bit more because, like, the key by itself doesn't do anything. So it would take a little bit of work on my end or a DM's end to make this work. But I think it would be cool because you wouldn't, like, one of the feel bad things with multiclassing in 5th edition is that, like, if you are a spellcaster, especially, if you take too many levels in another class, you eventually don't get your 9th level spells. And if you take levels in other classes, it pushes off your 9th level spells, and all your spells, really. So that, like, if you, say, started as a wizard, and you took, I don't know, let's say 5 levels of wizard, and then you took 2 levels of fighter, and then you went back to wizard and continued wizard, you would not hit those new spell levels until 2 levels higher than everybody else. So, for example, if you were a 7th level character at this point, and you were 5 levels wizard and 2 levels a fighter, you're a 7th level character, but you're only a 5th level spellcaster, so you only have 3rd level spells. If you had another wizard in the party, let's say, and they were 7th level wizard, they would have 4th level spells already. You're still only using 3rd level spells. And then, once you get to 9th level, you would then have access to 4th level spells, but your wizard companion who is 9th level wizard would have access to 5th level spells. So you're always going to be a level of spells behind the other spellcasters in the party. So what I'm proposing would be, let's say in that case you are a wizard, you keep leveling up wizard, but you want fighter stuff. You could spend your second level talent, that you get a second level on one of the fighter's abilities from first level. So it could be the fighting style, gaining one of those. It could be second wind, yeah. And then at fourth level, when you got a second level talent, you could pick up action surge if you wanted. So what you're not getting is you're not getting everything that the fighter has. You're not getting all of the armor proficiencies. You're not gaining the fighting style and second wind. You're not gaining the higher hit die, but you're picking and choosing the things that you want specifically, and you're not slowing down your spellcasting. So that would be my suggestion on how to handle multi-classing in 5th edition. Again, I could do a longer video, maybe exploring what's possible. So maybe rather than a refocus, maybe I take a short rest and do a video specifically on the this multi-classing idea that I have, and maybe I could do a whole build from like level 1 to 20 or something and see what that looks like, using DC20 as an example of how to handle the multi-classing. But I would probably do it every even level you get a talent, because I know in DC20 after level 10 you're pretty much capped out on your class's abilities, and then you, instead of continuing to improve in your class, you only get talents that you spend on either multi-classing or picking up other class talents, even other features from your spell class, from your subclass or other subclasses for your class. You can actually grab features from subclasses within your class that isn't your actual subclass. So anyway, I am being told that my short rest is up, so I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little bit scattered, maybe. I was trying to talk about a lot of different things, including the differences between DC20 and D&D, and then DC20 and Pathfinder. And then also, I did give you a little bonus there on my idea for multi-classing in 5th edition using DC20 as a template. I will end the video saying that, every time that I try to think, like, can I take this thing from DC20 and make it work in D&D? Or can I take this thing from DC20 and make it work in Pathfinder? I just keep coming back to, if I want to make these other systems DC20, why don't I just play DC20? So that's my plan. I'm planning to back to Kickstarter for sure, and I am definitely looking forward to the rest of DC20 as it is released. The alpha is officially over with the release of 0.7 on Friday. And then I will have access to the beta through the Kickstarter. So definitely looking to see how the game shapes up in the end, but it is definitely my preferred system at this point in time. So with that, have a great day, and I'm going to get back to this adventuring day. See ya. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content that you just saw, consider joining one of our games at startplaying.gaming/rollwithusdms.